Welcome to another week of Unity TV. Here we talk about life, love, faith, wisdom, and leadership. Hey, this month we're going to be talking to you guys the entire month about the scripture, Revelation 12:11. We have a very special guest with us to help us bring in this topic, Miss Miesha Kennerson.
Hey guys.
She's getting ready to bless you guys like you wouldn't believe. So, if you guys know the scripture, Revelation 12:11, it talks about that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, right? Mm-hmm. So Miesha, if you can real quick, what your interpretation? I know it's kind of like it's kind of self-explanatory, right, but what does that scripture means to you?
Well, I'll start with the first part. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb. Obviously, that's Jesus Christ sacrificing himself on the cross for us. It's by his blood that we are healed, that we are saved, that we are everything, that we are accepted into the kingdom of Christ. It's through his blood, and then overcoming by the words of our testimony. For the longest I didn't understand what that meant, but now I'm starting to see as I give my testimony that every time I give my testimony, there's like a new revelation that I hear from God as I'm giving it, or like there's like a new level of healing, a new because it takes away the shame, because I think that's the biggest thing that we struggle with when it comes to the things we go through in life, is that the devil beats us down with shame. But once you start to share your testimony, you're starting to get rid of that pride and that shame, and you get more and more comfortable with giving it, and to a point where like I'm so disassociated with the things that I went through that I don't even cry during my testimony anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm starting to see like what it really means to overcome by the words of your testimony.
Yeah.
Right. Now, question. So you said about the more you say it, the less shame you are by it. Why do you feel personally? Why do you feel the devil or the enemy rather will come at someone and put so much shame on them not to tell their testimony?
First of all, if I think that I'm the only person going through this, then it's easier for me to isolate myself in my own mental, and then it says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so if I'm idle-minded and I'm believing that I'm the only one that's going through this, that's when I isolate myself, and then the enemy can come in and attack with all the different things that he has to say about you. It does call him the great accuser, so he comes to accuse you, condemn you, make you feel shame, make you feel guilty, especially if you grew up in church and you know enough about God to know that what you did was wrong. He finds ways to condemn you, and once that condemnation comes on you, if I'm ashamed to talk to a human about it, why would I want to go to my creator? Why would I want to go to God about it? So I think that's why he comes to you with shame, and also if I do tell my testimony, someone else who's going through the same thing, they now hear, okay, I'm not the only one, and then that gives them hope. And why do I want you to spread hope around, because hope is, if no hope is how depression comes in, so if I can get you shameful, then I can get you depressed, I can get you anxious, which ultimately could lead to suicide. And so I think that's one of his biggest tools is shame.
That's good that you say that. Yeah. Anything on your mind?
No, go ahead.
So another thing was that you said the scripture said we overcome, and I think a lot of time we can misconstrue that we is us, just us in general. But you just said that when you give your testimony, you give other people hope as well. So we're not the only one. We're not the only one overcoming when we give our testimony. Because a lot of times. You hear this all the time when you do public speaking. People, oh my God, they say they touch me, or you don't know how many times that happened to me, and this and that. And I think that helps also when you hear people say stuff like that. It helps you tell your testimony more. Will you agree on that?
Absolutely. Just last night I got a phone call from a member of my church. And she was saying how she was going through some of the similar things that I had went through. And she's 36, I'm 24. And she was saying how for years she's been dealing with battling with that, and her and the pastor have been going back and forth on ways of healing. And she said, she felt like she was releasing it, but she was still shameful and still felt guilty. And she was like, it wasn't until I heard your testimony that I was able to genuinely release all of that and live again and actually feel free. And so with hearing that, of course I went into tears, because I was like, God told when you say you turn all things around for our good, you really mean that. Because that blessed me, you know, to know that my story that I was so ashamed of at one point is now helping someone else get out of the feeling that I know I'm so familiar with. Right. You know, so yes, absolutely, it does help other people.
Yeah, no, you said all things. This is a side note for you and Monique. David and Nicole Binion, I think their name are the one that sang the Hunger song. I discovered a song last night called All Things. Oh my God. It's good. Oh my God, it's so good.
She tore it up.
Oh man.
I love Nicole Binion. Her voice be like,
okay, why y'all doing that to me?
It melts me.
It was a really good song, so we're gonna listen to it today. But so check it out when y'all get a chance. All Things. But no, so that's powerful. So do you believe even like the cleanest people on, like I say the cleanest, but the most well put together people on earth, you think everyone has a testimony?
Yes, absolutely.
Gotcha. All right. Now, again, Miesha, you and I, we've been knowing each other for about 3 years now. So we
3 is unity. Right, I mean Trinity. We family.
That's big time. Okay, we in there. So and we know a little bit about your story and everything about your testimony, but I believe that I say what you've been through, what you're going through, and all that could really, really bless somebody else. So if you could, would you mind sharing bits and pieces of your testimony?
Okay, so I'll start with where everything pretty much started off. At the age of 4, I started being molested by family members, and I can actually remember the very first time, which you don't think a 4-year-old has that type of memory, but they do. I guess because it's such a traumatic instance in their life. But with that being said, at the age of 4, I started being molested by family members, and it went on until I was about 13. And then I tried to commit suicide for the first time at 7. I tried again at 16, and I tried again at 19. Obviously, I'm not good at killing people, so if y'all ever decide to murder, don't take me. Can't kill myself. So, but no, you know, what it comes down to is that I understand that obviously I have a purpose to be here, because 3 times a charm and it didn't work, so I guess I just figured I'd give up, because it was actually frustrating me. I was like, I can't live and I can't die, like it just doesn't work. But you know, I suffered with depression at a very, very young age. I didn't know what it was called then. I just knew that I felt like I had nobody, I had no hope, there was no one I could connect to, nobody understood me. But it was because I was growing up so fast with the things that were taking place. My mentality was just a little bit further ahead than people my age, and people would always tell me in church, you need to slow down, you're growing up too fast, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, you know what I mean, I'm not choosing any of this. And so they pretty much made me feel as though how I was living was my fault. And maybe to a certain extent it was, because I should have said something. But in that situation, first of all, you don't know what to say, and then when it's been a part of your life so young, you don't even know that it's wrong. Like, I came to a point where I honestly didn't know it was wrong until I took a sex ed class, and then I was like, this shouldn't be happening to me. And then after that, from there, the feeling of disgust was so bad that I dealt with that for up until 23, and I'm 24 as of March. So this is something I'm just starting to really come to, well, not really come to grips with. I think I came to grips with it a while ago, but I just didn't know how to release it. Because you can come to grips with what happened to you, but it's a different thing when you release it and say, yes, this happened, but this does not define me. Because for the longest I lived by that, it was I told my husband the other day, I felt like for a while, I was put on earth to be manipulated and used. And I didn't want to be beautiful, because I felt like maybe if I was ugly, then I would be unattractive and people wouldn't take advantage of me physically. You know, they wouldn't take advantage of my body. I wouldn't become this sex symbol. And so I literally forced my insecurities for a while. Like, I wanted to see myself and carry myself as an unattractive person, so people would not be attracted to me and take advantage of me. So then by the time I got to 7th grade, you know, all my friends were guys, because I thought naturally I had a connection to guys. So all my friends were guys, and I couldn't stand females. And so females started, there was a group of girls, it was about 7 of them. They would write me letters and put them in my locker and call me a whore, tell me to kill myself. You know, I wasn't worth, literally told me to kill myself in 7th grade. I wasn't worth living. I was ugly, I was fat, all these things. And it was already things I had started telling myself. So hearing it from other people, well, I'll say that the enemy was already telling me, So once I started hearing it from other people, I felt like it was confirmation that I really didn't have a purpose here. I really wasn't supposed to be here. I really was ugly. And they were calling me whores, and I was still a virgin. Like, I was still a virgin, but I honestly, I didn't know what sex was. Like, I didn't know what sex was, because my parents, they're very, very religious, and that wasn't a topic of conversation in my household. Like, that, it just wasn't. And so, I went into that was when my depression hit full force. Like, I'm tired, I can't take it. Home life wasn't amazing, and then going to school where most kids are free and safe wasn't amazing. And so I started cutting myself. I started taking sleeping pills just so I could like sleep. And and in 7th grade I had to be 12. I was 12. Wow. So I was taking sleeping pills. Because you can go get sleeping pills from the Dollar Tree, So I was taking sleeping pills just to get naps in, because I felt like when I was woke, life was miserable. So if I could just sleep, it would just be better. And then when I wake up, I try to force myself to go back to sleep, and you can't sleep for 8 hours and then go back to sleep for 8 hours. So I literally was just taking sleeping pills to get to sleep. And I never got addicted to them, thank God. But I also started drinking. At the age of 12, I was drinking. By 15, I was a full-blown alcoholic. Literally, where it was like every weekend I had to drink. I was even drinking in school sometimes. Like in class, I would be drinking vodka in a water bottle. Like, because I had friends who had parents that drank, and they could bring it to school for me. And that's so sad, like when you think of it, because at 15, like an alcoholic, and for the longest I wouldn't admit that. But as I got older and older, the tendencies to turn to alcohol were more instinctual. And once something is an instinct, it's because it's a habit, which you're addicted to it, obviously. And so by 21, when I turned 20, I made the decision that I was not going to drink until I was 21, because I at least wanted to say that, like, I could control it. And so I didn't drink from 20 to 21. I didn't drink, but then once I turned 21, I started drinking again very slowly. But then it went from once a month to once a week to once every other day, to me noticing like, okay, I'm going to sleep intoxicated every night. And I have a husband who does not like alcohol. He's not a fan of it at all. So that was a rift in our marriage for sure. And I just felt like I was being judged, like everybody else did with everything in my life. You're just judging me. You're just judging me. And for your husband to be the person that's judging you, it's painful, because you feel like this is the person that's supposed to heal me, and this is subconscious thoughts. I knew Kevin couldn't heal me, but subconsciously it was like, you're the person that's supposed to heal me, love me despite, love me in spite, do all but I loved him conditionally, but I expected him to love me unconditionally. And I can say I loved him conditionally because I started to lose respect for him when I felt like he was judging me. But if I loved you unconditionally, no matter how you treated me, my love wouldn't have changed for you. Or no matter how I thought you treated me, my love wouldn't change for you. And so, with that being said, some things happened in our life where we went our separate ways for a little bit, and I really focused on finding out what the heck was wrong with me. Because in our marriage there would be months where I would just shut down and have literally nothing to say to him. And he's really hyper, really, y'all know him, so he's really hyper, real big personality, and it would drive me nuts because I could fake it for a month and a half. And then maybe 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't want to get out the bed. And then a month and a half, I could fake it again. And then maybe 4 weeks, I don't want to get out the bed. And I noticed that every time the cycle of depression would come back, it would literally outstand the last one. And it was becoming harder and harder to like fight through it. And to a point where like I spent about a year of my life battling with depression.
In that time frame, were you sharing your testimony to anyone?
No.
Or were you still holding on to it?
I was totally holding on to it. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed. First of all, because I had to admit that family members touched me. You know what I mean? And these were family members that I would still see at family reunions and stuff like that. So me admitting it to other people, I would have had to admit to myself that this person hurt me, and it was just easier to pretend like it didn't bother me than to accept the true pain that it caused. And I felt like because I was so young, it didn't affect me in my life. But I realized as I started to track things backwards, that's where it all started. Right. 7-year-olds don't get depressed. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not, don't want to. Maybe they get sad, but they don't want to take their lives. I'm 7. There's so much life ahead of me. I'm 24. There's still so much life ahead of me, but at 7, that's insane. Mm-hmm. And so as I started to track things back, I started to realize that depression was a spirit. And I say that because you can really, I could feel it creep up on me. It would start with something simple, but if I paid attention to that feeling and I didn't cast it away, it would just take over me. It would consume me. And from there was nothing to fight, because it was almost like being put in a straitjacket and you have to wait for somebody to come release you from it yourself. It's not a battle it was a battle that I couldn't win, because first of all, we can't fight spiritual battles carnally. So and that was how I was trying to fight it. Like I said, alcohol, being married in general, like just to feel like there was one person on this earth that saw me more than just a sex symbol. So being married, alcohol, cutting, whatever it was, just a form of release. But that's carnal battle. That's a carnal way of fighting something that was spiritual. So when I got into my word, I started attending this church called Rivers of Living Water in DeRidder. Incredible church. If you're in DeRidder, come see us. Yes. Shout out. But I started realizing that I was living a very rebellious life, and it came from, God is a man. I don't really like men. Men don't treat me right. Men tell me what to do, but don't ever tell me why they think that's what I should do. They say I love you to get whatever they want out of me. And so I subconsciously saw God as another man who was saying he loved me to just get things from me that I wasn't really willing to give. Which was pretty much my life. And I wasn't willing to give him that, because the same God that's asking me to live for him is the same one that allowed people to touch me at the age of 4. But now I realize, God doesn't, and people would always say this in church, and maybe people don't agree with me when I say this, but they would say, oh, God sends you those storms, God sends you those battles. And I'm like, why would you send an adult to molest a 4-year-old? Like, you are evil. Like, you could teach me this lesson some other way. But I've come to grips with, God doesn't send the storms. The enemy sends them, and God allows us to overcome the storm. The enemy's going to be the enemy regardless. I'm always going to find ways to attack you, but God is going to be God regardless. I'm always going to find ways to protect you. If God thought that it was going to if he knew, God doesn't have to think. If God knew that it was going to take me out, he wouldn't have allowed it to come in the first place. If I didn't have praying parents, praying grandparents, if I didn't have some insight that he existed, some revelation that he was, or even reverence that he was something more important than I was, I honestly don't know where I would be, because all I knew was, look, I've tried it by myself. I keep trying it by myself, and it doesn't work. So maybe I will try your way. And then if it doesn't work, now I know that you really don't work. But the least I can do is give you the opportunity to show me that you do work. And when I say he worked so fast that I couldn't deny it being him, this was something I was fighting for 23 years. Well, 20 years. I was fighting this for 20 years by myself, thinking I knew everything on how to do it. I watched audios. I listened to YouTubes about overcoming depression and all their ways of doing it psychologically. And it was a temporary suppression for depression, but it was not healing depression.
I didn't know you was a rapper. No.
I get it from you and my husband. You're a boss. But that's what it is. It's a temporary suppression for it. It taught me how to push it down long enough to get through whatever I was going through, like whether it was an event, a meeting, whatever I was going through in that moment. But the moment I was by myself again, it was almost like throw up, like it would just come back up, and now it's just sitting here. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that commercial where there's like this little ghost depression thing that just walks around with the lady holding her hand, and like they give her a pill, and it shows the depression let her hand go, but it's still walking around with her. That's literally what it's like when you're suffering with depression and don't have Christ in you. Have Christ in your life, it's not holding your hand, it's not near you, it's not with you, it's not a part of you in any way anymore. I don't suffer with it. Do I feel the spirit when it's close? Yes, but because I know it's a spirit, I also know where to tell it to go. Right. When I feel it, I be like, devil, you a lie. Yeah. I am not depressed. I reaffirm myself with biblical scriptures on who God said that I am, and the enemy's not hanging around that. He's not interested in sitting around somebody who's going to keep throwing scripture at him, because that's how we fight. Right. You fight a spiritual battle by remembering that you're not in control. It's not by your power, not by your might, but by, the power of God, by the Spirit of God. So even Jesus, who was God himself in the flesh, threw scripture at the enemy when he was trying to tempt him. Right. So if that's how he was fighting, why wouldn't I fight the way that he fought? Right. We're Christians. We're supposed to be Christ-like. So that's how I fight that battle. But it's not the same type of fight. It used to be like, please just let me go. Please just, I can't take, in tears, begging God to just take it off of me. But now I'm like, you can't come on me. Right. I can feel, I don't know if you've ever been through something or around somebody and you just know, something's not right with them. That's how the atmosphere in the room feels when depression tries to come back. Right. And it's usually if I'm around someone who's depressed. But then what that does to me is I know the right questions to ask that person. So they'll start opening up, and now we can talk about that. And now I can cast this spirit away from you, because once we overcome something, we overcome it so we can then go get other people and help them to overcome it. That's good. So I'm not interested in, now that I'm happy and bubbly and it's a genuine, just this genuine happiness. I'm not interested in watching other people suffer silently. I'm not interested in watching other people suffer with mask on. Taking the mask off of I'm okay. I'm okay and I'm tired were my two favorite lines. And Kevin would always ask me, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm just tired. And I was being honest. I was tired, but I was mentally drained. I was tired of living. I was tired of fighting a fight that I felt like I was going to have to do for the rest of my life. When you're 24 and you feel like depression is something that you're going to have to deal with forever, forever is a long time. I don't want to deal with depression for the next 5 years. I don't want to be depressed for the next 5 minutes. But you telling me I'm 24 and I may live to 70? I don't want to live to 70 depressed. Right. That's where that when I have no hope that depression is something that will never come off of me, what is my point in being here? Right. Because no matter what comes my way, money, people, it doesn't matter. This is going to be here. So why chase fame and fortune or anything if I'm going to always be depressed? And I remember I was talking to a pastor. I will not say names because this is terrible advice. So don't ever give this advice to somebody who comes to you about anything. He said Paul was afflicted and he asked God to take something from him 3 times. And the Lord told him his grace was sufficient. And he was like, so maybe this is something you'll deal with for the rest of your life. But God's grace is there. If you recognize that depression is a spirit, why would God want my dwelling place for him to be overtaken by any spirit that is not of him?
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. But that just goes to show that even pastors don't always have the revelation of what a person is dealing with. So that is why it is so important when the scripture says study to show thyself approved. You cannot just get your revelation and your recommendations of what's taking place with you from other people just because they have titles or because they seem to live a lifestyle of a Christian. And even some of them genuinely are Christians, but if you've never dealt with something, you don't really know how to tell me how to come out of it. So you have to have that relationship with God for yourself, because with relationship comes revelation, and that's how we live,
That's good.
That's powerful, Miesha. So you said a lot of things there that was some key things, and one is that the whole time you were getting played temper with by the enemy is because you was holding it in and didn't want to tell nobody else. So like you said earlier, the isolation concept is that once you're isolated, shame, guilt, everything else that you're not supposed to be feeling start to come upon you. And then you mentioned, obviously we know you're married and everything, but a lot of time when people get married, they fight spiritual battles, like you said, carnally, with marriage, alcohol, sex, anything else that they feel can take it away from them.
Right.
And I heard this years ago about whenever you go into a marriage, it's not half and half expecting to get whole. It's whole plus whole, and that equals whole.
Right.
And a lot of times they got, you heard the cliche before, we're going to be married is happily ever after, right? But I don't know the stats. I'm going to have to do some research on it. I think I said that last Thursday I was going to do that. How many married couples are living with depression?
Right.
How many, and you may be sitting next to your spouse right now and not even know that they struggle with depression.
Exactly.
Things like that. But you mentioned that with those spiritual battles, you have to fight it spiritually.
Right.
Right. So, personally, and we're going to end it with this here. I believe, I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this, but the whole depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, I know it's a disorder that they put out there, but I'm very black and white. If it's good, it's from God. If it's bad, it's from the enemy.
Absolutely.
So I believe the schizophrenia, the bipolar, and all that stuff can be cast out.
It can, yeah.
Again, because personally, I struggle with depression. Not on that level, but I have struggled with depression. And now that I've given my life to Christ and things like that, I don't go through that anymore.
Right.
2011, I think that was 2012ish, is whenever I haven't, like, again, I can recognize it when it comes. I'm like, all right, I'm cutting up.
Right.
You
That's like, you're like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you lie.
You can recognize it when it comes.
Nothing's going wrong. Why am I depressed? Like, that just makes sense.
It's the weirdest thing in the world.
Right.
Like, what you want, bro? Like, anyhow.
Right.
But like you said, it's a spiritual thing. So, last words and comments for anybody you know, my person that's watching, whether or not you know them or not. What would you recommend to those people that's within a marriage or single, whatever, or divorced?
Anyone that's going through depression, the same feelings that you're having.
Yeah, thank you for
same feelings you had.
Thankful that you had, because again, a doctor is gonna be quick to tell you got this,
right?
Or you got
and then give you something to diagnose.
And again, I know I'm assuming it's. I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna put all my thoughts into it, but I don't think it's a legitimate thing. I think it's more of a spiritual thing.
Right.
Well, last words or recommendation, what would you tell those people that's watching?
Just to kind of hit off what you said, I agree with like schizophrenia, bipolar, all of that, because I was diagnosed bipolar. I wasn't bipolar. I just, at some points, I could pretend like I was happy, and then how I really felt, depression, would come out. And because I was embarrassed to say, well, I'm sad, I just turned it to anger. So yes, it looks like a lot of emotions real quick, but we're human beings, we're emotional. So if you don't have a synergy, which God is my synergy, then I'm going to do this. Imagine the world without an axle. Imagine if God didn't have the world in his hand. It was just, and we could feel how fast it was spinning. Yeah. Do you know how up and down, if gravity wasn't a thing keeping us centered, we'd just be all over the place. Like that's how it is without a synergy. And people's meditation and all of that is just temporary ways to suppress whatever spirit is dwelling in you. Right. And if I was the enemy, I would want this stuff to be diagnosed, because then you're not going to go to Christ to get the true healing. He is the healer. Medicine does not heal anything. You don't know of any. You cannot date back any medicine that has ever cured anything. It is all symptoms. It handles symptoms. But if you don't stop taking this medicine, the symptoms come back, sometimes worse. And honestly, medicine starts more other conditions. Then it starts new conditions. If I take a medicine for my heart, now my kidneys have to suffer. If I take a medicine for my kidneys, now my heart has to suffer. Like I shouldn't have to choose either or. Right. God didn't make us that way. Right. If I take medicine for depression, I have to worry about my kidneys and my liver and everything else. And so if you would just come to grips with the fact that it is a spiritual battle and be okay with that, because that's something that can be healed. The Bible says that we are healed by his stripes. We are healed, and it has ED at the end of that. That means that healing is a part of who we are as human beings. Healing is a part of who we are as Christians, as children of God. That is something that he felt we deserved, through the stripes of Jesus Christ. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Passion of Christ, but he had a lot of stripes. A lot of stripes. So that means all of those things he already had. That's mental health, that's spiritual health, that's physical ailments. That's why when you ask me about fibromyalgia, I don't claim that, because Christ said that I'm healed. So just because my body feels like it wants to do something that Christ didn't say, well, I have control over you. I have authority over you. I speak to my body and tell it every day it's healed, and one day it's going to have to walk in that. As soon as my faith lines up well enough, it's past my pains, it's going to have to walk in that. But with that being said, accept that it's a spiritual battle. fight it spiritually.
Wow.
Stop trying to fight it carnally. If you genuinely fight it spiritually and it doesn't work, that's not possible.
Right.
Like I want to say something, but it's not possible.
Right.
If you have tried everything, medicine, doctors, talking to someone, if you've tried everything but Jesus, why not? What do you have to lose? Nothing.
Right.
Literally nothing, because in depression you already feel like you have nothing. So go to the one place, the one person who understands it all and who actually can heal it all.
Right.
And get healed. Stop suppressing your symptoms. Get healed. True healing.
That's real good,
Absolutely.
Miesha.
No, Miesha, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. You did exactly what I expected you to do. I'm sure there's thousands of people that's going to see this, that's going to be blessed by your testimony. Because again, there's a lot of people that's walking around with that suppressed within them and not wanting to get it out.
Don't be embarrassed of it too.
Right.
Oh, you have to get rid of the fact of being embarrassed, because half of the people you walk by are wearing masks. I was just telling Kevin the other day, I'd rather be judged off of my genuine truth than for people, like, people are going to judge you anyway. So I'd rather people judge me off of my genuine truth than to judge me off of a mask that I'm trying to wear anyway. Because if you're judging me from my mask, then now I'm feeling like, dang, I can't be me or I'm going to be judged, but I also can't pretend to be somebody else because I get judged. So I might as well just be me and be judged, because at least whatever you're saying is the truth.
Right.
Like, I'd rather you tell the truth on me than lie about me, because I'm lying about myself.
Right. No, that's big time. And if you want, you can give your contact information that people can stay in contact with you, whether it's social media or they can email you or whatever. What's the best way that people can stay in contact with you?
I do not check my email.
Yeah.
But you
about
can,
20,000 of them.
Right. On Facebook, it's Miesha, Miesha Kennerson, Kennerson. You can follow me and my husband on our Instagram. It's Kevin, KEVIN _ MIESHA _ KENNERSON. Those are the best ways to contact me. If I like you enough, I may shoot you my phone number so that we can, actually have conversations on the phone. But let's start with the social media.
Yeah, that's a lot of letters, by the way. But
it is. Long names.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This bless you guys. Please like, share, and comment. And also send it to somebody that you think can really benefit from this. Again, I'm Darius Charles.
Monique Charles.
And our guest,
Miesha Kennerson.
All right. So guys, thank y'all again, and see y'all next week.
Bye.